Carving a photo with your CNC may seem complicated, but trust me, it's a lot easier than you think. I'm Ryan Drapella. I've been a full-time woodworker for over 10 years, and this is one of the coolest projects I've ever made. Today, I'll be guiding you step by step on how to do a perfect Photo V-Carve, going through the bits, materials, and finishing techniques I used to make these. Now, both of these behind me are both Photo V-Carves. One is made from wood and another is made from epoxy, but both of them use the exact same parameters and settings that we're going to be talking about today. Since most of you are woodworkers and have access to lots of wood, we're going to be doing something like this. But what is a Photo V-Carve? Well, a Photo V-Carve is actually a certain toolpath inside of a CNC program called Vectric. So it's either in VCarve Pro or Aspire. And what it does is it takes a photo and create thousands of different lines, and then you put a V-bit in there, and depending on how deep that V-bit goes, will create a darker or lighter look, right? And then you end up painting it black to shade the dark or staining it, and you're gonna get this really cool look. Pretty simple, but kind of complicated. Let's go get the materials. So keep in mind, we are in our shop. We're shooting this in our industrial shop. I'm gonna just go say hi to Anthony real quick. So Anthony is the original, very first employee of Drapella Works, which is my wood products company. Anthony, what are we cutting out today?
We're cutting out some bases for apparently some awards that we're making. After a while of tweaking it, we sure that we've gotten the right thickness and the right space that we need to fit those awards properly.
So we have one of our bits from CNC Workshop in there that's about to do a lot of cutting. I think it's cool. I love it. Thank you, Ant. Boom.
No problem, man.
All right, so back over here, guys, we have a ton of scrap in our shop. Just like you, I can't throw wood away. I'm a hoarder. But as you start thinking about what materials to make this Photo V-Carve out of, I would stay away from plywood because plywood tends to chip really bad and you get a very low quality photo because whenever it carves in, you're gonna have these little pyramids in the wood and the top's gonna wanna break off and then it turns really black. It's not very good. Even if you have a high quality Baltic birch plywood, I still have not had good luck with it, so don't get that. What I do recommend is using a nice, dense material that is the white as you can get, right? Because you want that deep contrast in that Photo V-Carve. So a hard maple is the wood I'm gonna select because it's dense, it's bright, and quite frankly, I have a ton of it back here in the shop. So let me just use, for our small photo we're gonna be doing, an old little tiny compact cutting board that we can't use anymore. So we'll engrave right here on this one. Next thing is a big piece. I want something about that big. Ooh, I like that one. This piece of maple right here. This looks good. This is a bad panel that we could not sell on CNC Workshop. But if you do need materials, solid panels like this or bits, give CNC Workshop a look-see. We got our 2 pieces or 3 pieces of maple we're gonna use, 2 small, 1 big. Let's take this back over to the CNC and start the programming. So we made it back to the CNC with our material. And I'm just gonna give you a little pro tip. So before we go program, I am gonna put a clear coat on these pieces of material. That way, whenever we do the Photo V-Carve process and have to paint everything black, the black doesn't really leach or seep into the white parts that we do not want black. Now, let's go program it.
All right, so let's start programming this Photo V-Carve. So I have my material set up the same size as that small cutting board, and I've already imported a few different photos that I'd like to look at. Now, the quality of your photo matters a ton on Photo V-Carve, so you wanna make sure you have very, very high quality photos. Now, a lot of people ask, can I just take one off my phone and import it in? Yes, here's one of my little baby boy right here, little Waylon, and this is just straight off my phone, and maybe we can try to do a Photo V-Carve with it to show you how it looks. So today we're gonna be doing Einstein, and I'll show you how these other ones look. But first, let's get Einstein programmed. The reason I'm doing Einstein is 1, I think it's a great photo, but 2, it's a good enough quality and has enough contrast for me to be able to do this photo. So we just pretty much set them in the job. Looks about right. Cool, cool, cool. And then we're going to select the Photo V-Carve button over here, and I am using Aspire, but it is also in VCarve Pro with Vectric. So I click the Photo V-Carve button, I click the photo I want engraved, and the main thing you want to look at here is this max carving depth. The max carving depth determines how many lines and how detailed this image gets. So if we do a max carving depth of, let's say, 1/8 of an inch, and I like to go at a 45-degree angle because I think it looks best. If you calculate this with that 1/8 inch carving depth, you don't really get a lot of good color. So whenever you turn it black, doesn't really look well. But if you go to, let's say, 0.01, so 1/100th of an inch, see how many more lines we're getting right here? The problem is it might be a little too detailed. So the happy medium between all of this, which I have found out, is 0.05 inches. And that's going to give us enough lines and enough detail to have a good image, but not too much detail where we're not going to be able to really sand down these lines any. And so that's the first thing you want to look at. Now, I personally like a 45-degree angle. If you do it vertical right here, it doesn't look as good. And let's just say this is vertical enough. To me, it just doesn't look as good because it kind of depends what direction you're looking at them from. So I like to do it at this 45-degree angle. The next thing you're going to want to look at is a step over retract, and this is 0.01, and what that step over retract is how far it's going to pick up whenever it is carving. And so see this line right here? So this green line right here is the step over retract, and that's how much the bit picks up and goes back down from line to line. So if you do a large step over retract of like 1 inch, that bit's gonna pick up 1 inch and then go back down, which is going to take a lot more time. So I personally like a 0.1 step over retract and a 0.05 max carving depth for this. The last thing that's going to determine how many lines you have is the bit you are using. I have learned that a 30 or 60 degree V-bit is probably best. And so right now we're using a 60 degree V-bit. And if you look at how many lines we got, it's quite a few lines in there. But if we use a 30 degree V-bit, look how many lines we get with that carving depth. So it looks like that 30 degree V-bit can do a lot more detail, and we might be even able to go a little bit deeper with this 30 degree V-bit. So these are just a few different things to think about when you're doing a photo V-carve. So you have the quality of the photo, that matters. You have the max carving depth, and then you have the bit. Typically, you're going to keep this line spacing at 100%, so you're good there. Now, what if we do a different photo, like this one I took from my phone right here? So if we do that with the exact same settings that we have, this is what we're going to end up getting. Not bad, but not great, because there's not a lot of contrast in my little Wayland right here, right? He's pretty white. He's pretty peachy. So that's why I like using these black and white photos. So let's get this programmed up for a 30 degree V-bit and a 60 degree V-bit. So we have our 30, we'll save that, and we'll duplicate this out and do the same exact settings at 0.05 max carving depth, a 0.1 step over retract with a 60 degree V-bit as well. And we'll go test these out to see how they look on the CNC.
So we're back at the CNC. I have one of my clear coated pieces held down. Center is marked. I'm using the darker version. And the first thing we're going to be doing is that 60 degree V-bit. And once again, is according to my scientific model right here, the V-bit is not gonna go as deep because it is that 60 degree, and that 30 degree is gonna go a lot deeper. So we'll see how it looks on a smaller photo like this. Once again, the V-bit I'm gonna be using is a 60 degree 3 flute V-bit that you can get at cscworkshop.com. Make sure my collet's clean, snap everything in there. I'm holding this material down today with some double-sided tape. The reason I'm doing that is because that photo is so big, I don't really have a lot of space for clamps. So I just took some double-sided tape, stuck it on the back side, and it's held down. And I'm just gonna step on it for good luck. V-bit's in, I got my X, Y, and Z zeros set. Time to get cutting. So while this thing is running, notice how twitchy this Z-axis is right here. Why it's so twitchy is because it's doing those little minute things to get all that detail. And that's what's so cool about the Photo V-Carve. Without a CNC, this literally would not be possible. So we are using the alt mill today. And if you're interested in something like the alt mill, link is in the description. And by clicking on that link and checking them out, you do help out the channel. So thanks, guys. All right, so we just got done cutting out. Time to take that little wire brush, you can get it from Harbor Freight on Amazon, and just go in there and just kind of clean all those little fuzzies up. Nice, and do not go across the grain because you'll break a whole bunch of stuff. So you just want to go nice and with that 45-degree angle, like you're brushing the horse. So this thing is coming out pretty good, and maybe from some certain angles, you can start seeing Albert Einstein. But after I brushed it, I did notice that we are having a little bitty bit of chip out, not much, but whenever we run this 30-degree V-bit, it's gonna have twice as many lines because we have the same density setting. And because of that, we're going to have a lot of chip outs on here because we have twice as many lines and they're twice as steep. So I'm actually not even gonna run this 30-degree V-bit because personally, I just don't think it's gonna work, and it looks like this is gonna work just fine using that 60-degree V-bit at that 0.05 cut depth. So everything doesn't go according to plan. This 30-degree V-bit will not get used today. So the next thing I gotta do, I'm gonna put another clear coat on this because I don't want any of that bleed, and then we'll paint it black. And while it's drying, we'll do the larger one and we'll unveil them both at the same time. Let's go. So now that we have this little one done, I do think I need to make adjustments before we go and cut out this larger one. And so let's go reprogram this bigger one and make some minor adjustments so we can have a nice consistent product that doesn't take 12 hours on the CNC. So let's go get to programming.
Everything I learned today was from Kyle Ellie with Learn Your CNC. He has a in-depth tutorial on how to do Photo V-Carves that by far exceeds my knowledge. So if you're interested in learning more about the programming side of whether it's Aspire, VCarve Pro, or simply these Photo V-Carves, I highly encourage you to check out Kyle's courses and communities. They are phenomenal and taught me everything I know about VCarve Pro and Aspire. So Kyle was kind enough to give me a 10% discount code for our subscribers. So check the link in the description and use that code at checkout if you're interested to learn more about Kyle's courses. All right, let's get our bigger Photo V-Carve programmed up real quick. So the material is 24 inches by 24 inches. So just slightly bigger than our cutting board. And then all I'm going to do for this is just scale up the photo. Yay, so big, right about there. And I'm gonna leave room for some clamps. That way I can hold the top and the bottom on my spoil board. Now we're not gonna use that 30-degree V-bit because once again, I'm just a little too scared with it. So we're gonna not do that bit. And we're just gonna do the 60-degree V-bit. But since this is bigger, I am curious if I can go down this 0.1 of an inch and still get a good high quality photo so my CNC doesn't take so long to do this. And honestly, it doesn't look bad, but I do not like the way his eyes look. So I'm just going to increase the depth a little bit. So instead of 0.05, I'm gonna do almost a 1/16 of an inch with that 0.06. And once again, I'm using that 60-degree V-bit. And to me, that looks pretty good. Now I could use the 0.05, but it is gonna increase that time. And since this is a YouTube video, I'd rather show you a slight difference with that 0.06. So with all of that being said, the bigger photo is now programmed up. It's just a bigger version, and this is going to take a lot longer than that smaller version. So let's hop down to the CNC and get Einstein number 2 cut out.
All right, we have our material held down, X, Y, and Z0 all set, have that 60-degree V-bit in. Let's press go. Notice that I do have that feed rate set at 120 inches a minute because it's really not doing that much, and these paths are pretty long, so that's what 120 inches a minute actually looks like live on a V-Carve. And guys, if you are getting value from this video, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe and share it with other CNC groups because it really help out the channel. Thanks, guys.
So be sure whenever you are painting this, I just use a regular can of black spray paint, but be sure you hit it at both angles, because if you don't, you're gonna have different lighter spots in your Photo V-Carve. So go from one side, then go from the other, so you get everything nice and coated black.
All right, the larger one is now complete. It took just under an hour to do this one. And once again, if we had that 30-degree V-bit, it was gonna take twice as long. And if we did a shallower depth, right, a shallower cut depth and not that 0.06, it may have taken even longer. This thing is coming out. I love it. So if you can see from your angle, it's starting to come out, and I'm really glad we used that 60-degree V-bit because we don't have really any tear out. That hard maple held together really well. So we're gonna go put that clear coat on, then come back with that black and really see how this thing came out. So both V-Carves are looking good so far. We have our small one right here. It is clear coated and painted black, but it's still not fully clear, so it's not ready to be sanded yet. The larger one is looking really good. Those settings that we have so far, so good. I have it clear coated. Once that clear coat dries, I will come back and paint it black. And because I want all of this paint to set, to fully cure, we're gonna come back tomorrow and sand every single thing off and unveil these two right here and see if they come out. So this is exciting. Now it's time to wait. See you back tomorrow. Pro tip, whenever you are sanding, you know those pieces of sandpaper that you don't throw away because they're good for something? That's exactly what you want to use here because that paint is going to gum up a lot of sandpaper. So if you have old crappy sandpaper, use it because it's the best on Photo V-Carves. Also, another thing while you're sanding, you want to make sure everything is flat as possible because if you go too deep in a spot where it's supposed to be dark, you may sand it down. So you just want to make sure you're sanding as flat as possible whenever you're doing this so you get a nice flat look. That's pretty cool. Honestly, it turned out pretty dang good. We can pop up the picture of what it's supposed to look like right there. And then that's what it's supposed to look like here. Pretty cool. but I think the big one's gonna look even better. You know what? This is gonna take a long time to hand sand, and I have a $60,000 sander sitting right here. So let me just use the giant thing that's made for sanding. The only catch is if I just go down a little bit too deep, it could literally ruin 2 days worth of all of this. Just a little bit more, baby. And this is why it's important to have everything flat, people. Just a little bit more. Yeah, baby. Yes, sir. I want just a little bit more, baby. Let's take a look, baby. I don't know how I feel about the wrinkles on the forehead, but it's not bad. I'm gonna do a little bit of fine sanding for the wrinkles on the forehead, but I dig it. I dig it. I think we should go one more pass. You videoing?
Yeah, I think, yeah, one more pass, one more.
All right.
One more.
I'm gonna go one more pass. Let me know if I should have not did this in the comments. But yeah, let's do one more pass. I don't know. I don't know if I like it or not. He got a big old forehead like me. He's got a big old forehead. That's awesome. Let me do some touch-ups, then let's talk about it. So, all right. So notice how this little one right here has the lines all the way on the forehead. And the big one right here, obviously I went down a little too much and sanded those lines off. So I think why that Photo V-Carve puts lines on everything, because whenever it gets white, it gets really, really white. And so my advice is don't sand until you get no lines. Do it like this one and keep lines in there. Even, I guess on this one right here, older one that I had, the only thing that doesn't have lines is right here on the tie. And so as we do these and think about them, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see a receding hairline or a fat forehead. So if you're doing these, whether it's large or small, be sure of that. Now, I do think the line spacing was really good on this one with that 0.06 cut depth at 100% density. I really liked it. The 60-degree V-bit did its thing. There's not a lot of chip out on here almost anywhere. So I may have could have did it a little bit tighter, like this one that had that 0.05 cut depth with that 60-degree V-bit. But all in all, these came out great. I hope this inspired you to get on your CNC, press go as much as possible, and I hope you left this video with more knowledge than when you started. And as always, guys, remember, if you ain't cutting it close, you ain't cutting it right.